call this regular council meeting of the Village of Grand Manan to order at 7:30 p.m. on May the 17th, 2018 at the Grand Manan Community Center. And for pastor, we have Pastor Luke Anderson of the Lighthouse, who will lead us in prayer.
Let's pray. God, we love you. We thank you so much for the beautiful day that you've given us. God, thank you for our beautiful island. Thank you for council. I pray that you would be with them tonight as they make decisions pertaining to our island that we call home. And I pray that you would continue to make our land glorious and free. So God, we just ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, the council would like to commend the students of the Grand Manan Community School who took part in the ditch cleaning. Those people done a fantastic job, and they had a hard section of ditch to clean. It looked great, and council wants to thank you. Now we'll talk about my pet peeve. People who don't respect our environment and continue to litter with coffee cups, cigarette packages, and all other kinds of garbage. After the great job done by the students, and 5 days after, we have ditches that people would never know they had been cleaned. So let's appreciate our beautiful island and stop the useless littering. Take a grocery bag with you and put the litter in it, and you'll be surprised at how quick the bag becomes full, and dispose of it properly. The grass is turning green, and a small white cup or a pop can is very visible. Let's be proud of our great island. Let's all do our part. Thank you. Disclosure of conflict of interest.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to disclose conflict of interest on 10-4 and on 10-5, please.
Any other disclosures? Adoption of the minutes of April 9th, 2018.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move we adopt the minutes as circulated.
You heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Moses. Seconder?
No second.
Seconded by Councilor Fitzsimmons. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Additions to the agenda. We have a letter here from the Swallowtail Lightkeepers Society that needs to be looked after. And also I had suggested that we put the right whales onto the agenda. We all know possibly that 2 or 3 whales into the Bay of Fundy, it'll be quite a hindrance to our lobster fishery. So,
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we add those 2 items to the agenda under 10-7, we want to have Lighthouse, and under 10-8 for the right whales. Mr. Mayor.
you heard the motion by Councilor Sturgeon. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Murphy. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Now we have the RCMP report, and we have Corporal Terry Pomeroy with us. I don't know whether this is his second or third time back on Grand Manan.
Short term, this has been my probably 10th time. Long term, I guess, is my second. I was here I came here in 2004, stayed here in 2007. So part of the last council meeting I did was about 11 or 12 years ago, and I was at the old Boys and Girls Center. So this is the first time I've seen this room.
So would you like to explain why you're here?
I will. Yes, so I was asked to come over to relieve some of the pressures with the couple of officers that are currently working. One was away on vacation, as he has the right to be, and the corporal has had a new child, so he's off on a pat leave. So I've asked to come over for a minimum of 30 days. I'm hoping that they're going to extend me for the summer. I'm hoping you guys are in favor of that also. But that's not up to me, that's up to management in Fredericton and in St. George, so I'll wait to hear the good word. As of now, I'm here till the 18th of May. And I understand that we weren't at the last council meeting, which was in April or March. Therefore, there's two reports, one for the month of March, one for the month of April. I reviewed it myself. I don't see anything. I guess I don't typically review Grand Man files, but it doesn't seem as anything stands out to me. But I'll put it to the table if there's any questions about either the month of March or April. March had 16 criminal code files that we responded to, and numerous checkpoints and motor vehicle act tickets and warnings that we gave out. And in the month of April, we had 10 criminal code files, complaints that we responded to, and again, numerous other provincial statutes like speeding or alcohol-related, off-road vehicle act problems or complaints thereof. So, yes. Any questions about those? Again, they seem pretty reasonable to me. I work in St. Stephen, St. George, and as far as kind of per capita, it seems like these would be similar kind of stats that we would have there, just on a lower scale. Good. I will bring up one other item if I could, Mayor. It's a police week next week, as is typical in May. So I'm trying to, I spoke to the ambulance service people and fisheries people and the RCP, and we're going to get together behind the community school on the old field that's there, bring up our vehicles and have a couple of police officers and members of each contingent there, each service there. And from 11 to 12 on Tuesday, May 15th, from 11 to 1, sorry, we're going to have our vehicles up there and have the kids come out of the school during lunch hour, some hot dogs and hamburgers, and as is typical, I think. And we're, I believe that the fire service is now on board, so we'll have vehicles and members from all those agencies there, and the public is welcome to attend along with the school children for those 2 hours, and again, there'll be some food and drink for a couple hours.
Any questions for Corporal Palmer?
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 8.1 is unsightly premises, and it was Councillor Ingersoll was going to speak on this, and he called me at supper hour and he wasn't going to make it tonight. And he said we can either take it off the agenda until he's present, or he roughly told me what he wanted to do was get a mail out to people asking them to improve their properties and see how many people responded to that, and also have in the notice that was going out is if these places aren't cleaned up within 6 months, we'll look at bringing in an unsightly premises bylaw.
I think we should go ahead if he would be in favor of us.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead and
Yeah.
vote or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. So that was just the gist of what he wanted, give people a chance to clean up. He didn't really say what he wanted in the notice to go out, but that's the gist of it. He's given them a chance to clean up and tell them it's roughly we should be proud of their island and you should look after your properties, and we'll go from there. So if somebody wanted to make a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion.
You heard the motion by Councillor Turner. Do we have a seconder?
Second that.
Seconded by Councillor Cheney. Question?
Mr. Mayor, I really value the spirit of what we're trying to do here, but this is a general mail-out, I think it will be.
Yep.
And how would I put it?
Well, it'd be worded such that it will not really hurt anybody.
Well, this is my concern, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we're in the 10-minute open session. You're not gonna speak, Tara?
Not tonight.
Okay, number 10.1 is the municipal assessment management funding application. Councillor Chaney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a full resolution here. Might is that verbatim? I expect so. What we've done up to this point is we've selected an engineering firm to handle our municipal asset management plan. And this resolution is to move forward to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and for a grant for the program. Am I correct on that? I believe so. Therefore, be resolved that the council directs staff to apply for a grant opportunity from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Plan Program for the Village of Grand Manan. Be it therefore resolved that the municipality commits to conducting the following activities in its proposed project submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Assets Management Program to advance our asset management program. Bullet. Asset inventory and data collection. Compile information from various sources, including past projects, list and record drawings to populate the required data fields. Operators will be interviewed to fill any gaps. Bullet. Condition of critical assessments. Visual condition inspection of airplane runway, facility inspections, and conduct a climate change risk assessment. Bullet. Capital asset management and reporting. Describe the target level of service, establish priority score rating, priority planning, and report preparation. Adoption of asset management plan by council. Be it further resolved that the municipality commits $5,006 from its 2018 budget toward the cost of this initiative. Therefore, I move to proceed with the application for a Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program to help with funding for sustainable management of our infrastructure through asset management practices.
You heard the motion by Councillor Chaney. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Turner. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 10.2 is an amendment to the Grand Manan gas tax agreement. Councillor Chaney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In order to proceed for this management plan, we will be going to our gas tax, or amending our gas tax formula to obtain the $5,006 to help cover the plan which I aforementioned. Therefore, this is the 5-year capital investment plan for the gas tax formula fund Minnesota's agreement, Village of Grand Manan, 2014-2018, this 4-year period. This is a resolution. That the document entitled Village of Grand Manan 5-year capital management plan for the Minnesota agreement 2014-2018 be amended to include any expenditure of $5,006 to cover the cost of a municipal asset management program for the Village of Grand Manan. And that's my motion.
You heard the motion by Councillor Chaney. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Moses. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 10.3 is the Dundee Communication Foundation. They would like to have somebody sit on their nominating committee. Councillor first.
That's exactly what the foundation wants, was a member of the town council. I think the last one we had was Deputy Mayor Robert Moses. Since his time, the request has come in annually. I don't think there's anybody volunteered as yet. And Robert can give us some idea of what entails with it.
What the position is, they have a board of directors that manages the funding, the fund, the community fund. It's growing all the time. This funding, community foundation, funds projects all through this area. The high school here has benefited 3 or 4 times from it. There have been other organizations that have gotten grants. What they're asking for is somebody to sit on the nominating committee. That nominating committee canvasses and nominates people to sit on the board. I've done this in the past, but I don't have time to sit on that committee at this time.
Do we have any volunteers?
A lot of the work can be done over the phone and over the internet and by email.
Do we want to think about it for a month?
Mr. Mayor, I would volunteer if nobody else is interested, but I didn't want to jump anybody to the gun, I guess.
I think everybody's overjoyed.
Second motion.
So we don't need a motion for that, do we?
No, it's just an appointment, your appointment.
10-4 is Stanley Beach Erosion. Councillor Cheney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry about that.
I saw the agenda as it came through our social media on the All in Politics site, and seems that there was some concern of what might happen there for the summer. I went over to the beach, took those photographs, got to old grandman photos, saw some pictures of when Wally Lander had his smoke stand and herring stand there. Been watching the beach for some time in the past few years, the way the eelgrass has moved. Delta's gone, the bank's gone. The Stanley Brook is now coming down, pretty well coming out at the end of the beach where the John Stanley has his Goonies raft, and just past that, I think there's a provincial right-of-way that goes down, but the landowner to the north of that is Mr. Dina Morris, and his property line now is pretty much to where the Stanley's Brook is coming out onto the beach. Tremendous amount of erosion over the past winter changes actually the course of the brook entering Stanley's Beach. So I was just wondering what's going to happen in the next years to come for our future generations. Parking lot, where will that be? Back more and more. Talking and getting information back from Mr. Morris, he's not adverse to any work being done there on his portion, which is a major portion, the right-of-way being straight down would take a portion of the beach as well. As you're down to the suburb would be the L'Oreal Estates property, and then starts the legend. It's probably a long process, Mr. Mayor. You've been involved with that, beach erosion, and I don't think we want to have in the future probably something that looks like the marsh built up like that, but maybe there's something we can work towards to solve the problem with erosion, but yet allow the families and children to move from the parking area down to the beach without climbing over boulders. So I put that on the agenda maybe for now to start the process of what we might consider we might want to do. I don't know what the village can do. Maybe lead in some directions to finding if there's funding now that we have a lot of erosion, coastal erosion. Maybe there's funding up there for things like this. I don't know what our plan would want to be, but I just thought I'd put it out there to see if there's any thoughts from the councilors on what they might like to see happen there, or just let it go and keep moving.
You can't do anything till you have an environmental protection study. And
There's one implemented now, and that's I think 98 or 90-day process. The landowner looked into it a little bit, and as long as they can work from the shore, they can't go down on the beach and build things there. You could devise a wall, or you could plant the eelgrass back on. But as you say, where it is now, there's no sandbar even to do that for them to work with. It would take a process for sure.
Okay.
the thing is you can't reclaim any land.
That's right, you can't make more land, but you can stop
Yeah.
it from being eroded. So if we started now, we can stop the erosion, so because in the future, if you come up 10 more feet, we can't reclaim that 10 feet. We can only go where the high tide is, the latest high tide is.
As I understand it, it's defined property owner stops at the high water mark, and the halfway down to the mean low water is a provincial, and then after that it becomes federal. That's way down. It's probably municipal and federal governments that would have to work together to do something there, I think.
Okay, so other than devising, before we do an environmental, if we do, we should probably move forward, but rather than bringing heavy civil equipment there, it probably would be, if the landowner wanted to, and he was above high tide, we could still feather down that 2.5 foot bank now, because the parking lot goes along and it drops 2.5 feet to the beach now. So we could probably feather that at 45 degrees for easy access without causing any uproar.
The only issue I have is, and I think Councilor Cheney, you can agree with this with your past work experiences, once you disturb something that's been hard packed, it affects it tremendously. I mean, you might actually make the problem worse by trying to feather that wood. Possibly, don't you think, or?
Well, that's a good point, because you can see the stratification in that 2.5 feet.
I went for a drive down there today.
Well, okay, so then maybe if it was at not high tide, but mean high tide, you could just add a little more fill from that top down to the bottom, and then fill that triangle and make a nice walkway. Wonder if that could be done. Maybe that would happen on a foggy night at midnight, I don't know.
And then again, once again, like as you already mentioned, what exactly would you put there? I mean, because it is a place that's used to have, quite a bit by the public, as you said, and you wouldn't want anybody getting hurt. I mean, because then liability comes involved, right?
So we want a sharp angular stone, right?
Yeah, or anything that could possibly, you want it big enough so it doesn't move, but still not small enough that it'll shift and somebody could hurt as well, right? So.
Well, maybe leave a ramp or a gangway for the summer. I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm just.
Yep.
That's just
The only big problem is going to be the brook that comes out there.
You're right on that. Where's that going to?
Well, no, I mean, you've got to be so many feet away from that before you can even start the work. And as far as, I wouldn't want to be the person involved that was putting some equipment there without inquiring of the provincial and federal government what to.
Yeah.
So a good idea would be to get Rob to contact Fisheries and Oceans
Okay.
and
Environment.
Environment contact those agencies to see what has to be done. But you can get into an environmental study that's gonna cost you $100,000.
I think there's trout in that brook, isn't there?
They'll use electrolysis and kill them to find out.
Well, I know one thing. I thought there was a trout in there about 40 years ago when I walked up the brook and stuck my hand into the bank, but it was a muskrat, no. So I never was a muskrat.
He didn't want you for bait.
Pardon me?
He didn't want you for bait.
I took a jump in my thumb.
So what about those little traps over there?
Those traps were old lobster traps filled with stone. Mr. Morse put in as Gadians, and under his own willpower back in 1990s or so.
Right.
And they worked for a while, but they just washed those back to
They're nothing but a hazard now for kids and stuff.
Yeah, it's not a picnic site with those there. No. Can they be removed? I don't know. We never asked the question.
Rod can look into that.
Yeah.
Seeing a motion to that effect, Mr. Mayor, for the CA, the police requires?
I think so.
Well, I would make that a motion if we could ask the CEO to investigate the procedures to keep Stanley Beach from eroding further.
So, you heard the motion by Councillor Cheney, do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Question?
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, we're going to make inquiries what our options are, and that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to move forward
No.
on this. Okay, thank you very much.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next is 10.5, a presentation from residents of Ingalls Head. Former school teacher, ex-fireman. David Bryan.
Mayor Green, Ms. McPherson, councilors, attendees, thank you very much for allowing the residents of Ingalls Head to make some comments here tonight upon the expansion of the Ingalls Head boat haul-up. You've given me a little bit of ammunition here from previous topics that seems to hook up with this one quite well anyway. I would much prefer to go off the cuff, but I have my wife here, and she says I'm not allowed to do that. She'd have to haul me in, rein me in, and besides, we don't want to send out for breakfast. So what I've decided to do is read two statements to you. That way I won't get quite involved, but I think the details here will suit the case very well. The first one is my own, with some assistance, of course. Dear Council, my perspective on the upcoming expansion of the present boat haul-up is a more general one. Over the past 30-plus years, Yvonne and I have lived in a construction zone much of the time, with breakwater construction, original construction of the boat haul-up, and recent expansion of the boat haul-up. We were in hopes that we could finally relax and enjoy our summers. Then came information about funding for more expansion, much to our annoyance and disappointment. I went to the public meeting that was held to announce funding for expansion and the purchase of a new lift. I obtained one-on-one meetings with Rick Doucette and Premier Brian Glenn. I was assured by both men that the neighborhood would not be affected by funding, and the funding would be spent in the present confines. Then, lo and behold, Gordy Dean's land was purchased, and construction ensued once again. Now Carl Take's property has been obtained, and the entire area in front of our home will become involved. Frankly, we've had enough. Basically, it seems further expansion is for two reasons. I'm pausing here because I can't have legal reasons. One is that the Grand Manan facility is not large enough as the ones compared to other places in the province, namely Caracat. And I don't understand why we have to be as large as Caracat. Secondly, and perhaps the major reason for the increase in the expansion is for increase in revenue that would be achieved with more berthing. All of this is planned to be done without an environmental impact study.
without. Concerning the effects on adjacent properties, such as proximity to wells within a ball toss, and the effects on the clam flats, where the previous clam flats gone up or Warren Ingles' house once was, non-existent. Wetlands. I called Ducks Unlimited, I called DNR, I called Environment. They are wetlands, not designated wetlands, however. Ducks are nesting there on oil, and anyway, there's been no study, nothing, just goes on. Above all, it truly annoys me that a young couple moved into a quiet area for health reasons and came face to face with this situation. Another couple regrets buying a home in the same area to retire to. Yet another couple is considering moving. As for myself, it is no secret that I want out. The very neighborhood in which we raised our children. My wife does not want to move from the neighborhood. It's the only neighborhood she has ever lived in, all her life. She's more level-headed than I am, more cool. She says, if I move, I want to move when I want to, not to be forced out. Critically speaking, it comes down to one question for me, which is more important? An increase in the financial gains for the business or the consideration for continued health of the wetlands, water table, and shoreline, and the quality of life of the residents in the area. Here ends the first lesson. The second one is drafted up by Mr. Drew Heenan. I hope I can give the presentation the way he would like. I'm asking for your help in a matter that is very important to me. I have recently been informed that the boat hauler located at the end of Eagles Head will be expanding to the edge of my property line. I attended a meeting that was hosted by the organization responsible in order to voice my issues with their plan and to state that I did not agree with what they were proposing. I was not the only one at the meeting, nor the only person affected by this expansion. During the entire meeting, I can honestly say that we were uncomfortable with what was going on. I ask for your help to intercede on behalf of the residents of Eagles Head to put a halt to the expansion of the boat haul-up. My primary concern is based on the health and recovery of my wife. He does not explain, but she was in a severe car accident. She has brain damage and a major concussion. We chose our home on the basis that it was in a quiet community on the island. It had a beautiful view of the water. It was located not around any busy area, and it was off the main road. It was ideal for Allison to keep working on her recovery. Since we moved to this home, the recovery had been interrupted by the boat haul-up. First, they expanded a single property towards us. We were not notified what was going to be happening, nor were we advised on what was occurring. Asked how we would feel about it, or what they could do to improve the construction site. Instead, while they were doing the construction, we were wakened at 6 a.m. and continued to live in the construction zone until 8 p.m. every day. The constant noise, the smell from paving, and general disruption from the construction did not help in her recovery. Did not allow any relief for her symptoms, as it continued every day for an extended period of time. If this expansion were allowed to continue, as they have planned, it would be a permanent effect on her health, as even the fence will create a visual effect that will result in overstimulation and nausea each day. She uses the view from our deck and most of our windows on a daily basis to help with grounding and meditation. These views were mostly disappeared, and if the haul-up were to continue towards the property line. Outside of recovery from my wife, I am worried with the effects that it have on my property. We have seen oil spills that have seeped from the boat haul-up to the end, off the ground, down into the wetlands. I am worried that this could have a major effect on my well, should they come this way, and the land surrounding the area. When we asked about an environmental impact study, it was in a sense ignored. The debris that comes from the normal running of the business is often seen to be blowing around the community that we live in. And so often, the owners of the boats do nothing to clean the mess up. I have no desire to have to clean up after them on my own property. During the meeting with the government, people kept mentioning digging a drain ditch on their property. I have a field and at times a small stream that runs on my property. I do not want a ditch on my land to help with their runoff. It is unlawful for them to do anything on my property. Finally, as a young homeowner and the first-time homeowner, I am concerned with the value of my property. I spoke with the realty agent, and he said that there would be a drastic effect on our property values. The decrease of our water view, the business sitting on the edge of our property, and in essence, in the building site, is not something that I want to affect. Our final concern is directly affects those living in Turner Crescent is lighting issue. Since the Hall installed the new LED lights, it has flooded us in the evenings and at night with a large amount of light pollution. It was discussed during the meeting held at the Hall Up, and I sincerely hope that they will make some improvements to what is currently happening. It should not be necessary to put up blackout curtains in order to decrease the amount of light from an establishment like this. It is my understanding that the residents of an area, if they do not agree to the plan that the neighborhood is producing, that the village may intercede on behalf of the affected residents. Please find a way to help us. And how? Well, one, try to stop it if you can. I'm in hopes that council will have the authority to stop the demolition of a community. Two, perhaps an injunction to slow them down, at least to try to force an environmental impact study, a view of it, and a walk around. You can see what I'm talking about. Least desired, of course, maybe a compromise, maybe not go straight over, maybe part way. And lastly, maybe a note or a letter to the Fishermen's Association about our concerns, and maybe they might reconsider. Thank you very much. Hopefully there's some questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think, as a counselor, other than Councilor Morris, that we're very informed on the issue that's taking place down there.
I didn't know there was.
It's zoned as industrial. So I would like to have a chance to do some research to see what has been done. Any other suggestions?
I mean, we have to at least look at it if it's affecting people down English Head, so I mean, we should take a serious look at it.
Any other comments?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think it's fair to say as well, too, that, well, I think we all sympathize with these residents. This is more than just about a business. This is a business that affects the industry that keeps our island going, on the other hand, as well. So, it's a tough one, to say the least.
I think the best thing would be to do some research, to find out what information we can, has there been an environmental impact study? Is one required?
One's required for us to touch anything on the beach. Why wouldn't there be something there for the wetlands and stuff? I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine them being able to just plow that all under. There is a little pond there. I know what you have to go through to cross a brook out in the woods if you want to cut wood or something. No. Plow that all under. I don't know. Like you say, I haven't heard of a thing.
So,
no information at all. So.
What would be the best way to get information that would help us?
For the municipal, our concern is they have acquired all the permits that we require for them to move forward. I would suggest possibly the provincial government, maybe one on the wetlands type of equation that David mentioned.
I mean, I think getting some information is the best way to go. I'm just wondering where we get it when they're the ones that are doing the work, you know, like when it's the provincial government that, you know, made the promises for expansion and all that. I just don't know. I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt to try, but it just...
Well, again would be the Department of Environment is what would be the biggest part of it. The expansion doesn't go all the way to the beach. But what David had mentioned, and he did have some telling pictures there of what's gone in the back.
Can you people hear?
Yes, okay.
Can you hear it?
Going to share your
No, I
opinion?
can't hear this.
Oh, well,
You're speaking.
I'm going back and forth.
This is only one, there's far more. And if this doesn't go down into the wetlands, depending on the slope, it could hit it right into his well too, because I say it's going to be ridiculously close. That's the road come down there, and you can see where it's run down in through. You don't get any more pictures.
I have the one I followed up.
Do we know when this is supposed to take place? Like, is this underway? Is there going to be crews down there working? Right?
I think that they're waiting to notify the company that the contract has been awarded.
So there's been a contract, it's been awarded.
See, I'm not,
Right,
I'm
okay,
just
okay,
repeating what
okay,
somebody that's not involved with it told me.
right.
Somebody told me today that the equipment was starting to move in to work on that contract.
We have been told that it'll be finished by the end of July this year.
So it'll start quite soon then.
So we're hardly going to be able to get any inquiries in, they're going to be down there plugging the line.
This seems like a phase 2 or phase 3 to the original project. And just because you get environmental approval on phase 1, doesn't mean that's carte blanche, I wouldn't think, for the next phases. I think you'd have to approach that with an environmental for phase 2, phase 3, or whatever you want to
Might have
do.
water if I say.
Just get the mayor's attention.
Yeah, who's to say there was an environmental survey done on the first one?
I don't know.
Generally, Mr. Mayor, contractors are quite loath to start anything
Oh, sure.
because they, you know, they really don't want to get themselves in hot water over a contract. They want to make sure all the paperwork is together. So I'd be very surprised if the paperwork isn't done. Very. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to do what research they can with Ducks Unlimited, Department of Environment, and other departments of government to find out what has been done for paperwork in the past, what's done on the permits and studies have been done on the current expansion. And
ASAP?
yes.
And if
ASAP.
you have it,
If-
we would like to see it.
Yeah, when it's available, we can look at it as a emergency meeting or whatever the mayor seems fit.
So you heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Moses. Do you have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Fitzgerald. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Anybody knows of anything else that we're missing out on? Let us know.
got a hamper in the truck.
We've seen you use that before, Joe. It's going, it was opened up.
Something.
Hope you ain't turn up the heat on it.
Turn on the turbo.
And the glasses.
My God, you're all used up.
Nothing on it. Glasses help.
He just wants to be on camera.
There we go. Oh, wait, there it is.
There you are, don't touch anything.
27.
So everybody's gonna have to speak a little louder with the fan going there. Okay, now we will move on to Ken. Oh, excuse me, I'm getting here. Motion to transfer funds from the capital reserve fund to the general capital fund to cover the cost of the new recreation tractor. Councilor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last month, we agreed to purchase a tractor for the rec department. And this month, we have to make a transfer from the capital reserve to the general capital fund to cover the cost for the new tractor. So I make a motion to transfer the amount of $30,705 from the capital reserve fund to the general capital fund to cover this cost.
There's a motion by Councilor Fitzsimmons. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Moses. Question?
Covers HST.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, 10-7. That's where we want it. Is a letter from the Swallowtail Keeper Society. Preserving swallowtail lighthouse. As you know, in 2013, swallowtail lighthouse ownership was transferred to the Village of Ramanan Swallowtail Keeper Society. Undertook the 2-year restoration of the lighthouse, including fixing of the stone foundation, interior and exterior restoration, and returning 3 windows to the lighthouse and a boardwalk linking the lighthouse to the keeper's dwelling. We always strive to restore the historical character of the lighthouse and have researched and designed exhibits for each floor of the lighthouse. In the restoration process, the upper outside deck of the lighthouse where the lantern room is located was waterproofed, and every effort was made to stop the ongoing leaks in the aluminum cupola, which replaced the 1860 cast iron one in 1969, including caulking every seam and around each window. Despite all these efforts, the leaks cannot be stopped and are jeopardizing the interior of the restored lighthouse, which you can see buckets of water collecting during a rainstorm, which inevitably water escaping and leaking down the second and first floors through the ceilings. Cupola experiences a huge variable wind, with a gust recorded over 160 kilometers an hour on our wind gauge. Cupola aluminum panels undulate in heavy winds, which breaks the caulking seal. We have been in contact with the Canadian Coast Guard in St. John and understand they have a restored larger 10-sided cupola which we might obtain to replace the current one. A larger cupola would resolve 2 issues. The first and most important being the continued water infiltration and damage to the tower. A larger cupola would sit on the new fiberglass deck and could be sealed to the deck where the bolts extend through the beams to keep the cupola from blowing away. We could then fix and waterproof the floor inside to further reduce any possible water damage. Secondly, a larger cupola would better match the original design and return historic exterior profile of the lighthouse. The original 10-sided cupola was about 2 foot wider across the current 8-sided one. An interesting note from Swallowtail Lighthouse is that the top deck where the cupola sits had to be modified in 1860 so the cast iron cupola would fit. The lighthouse was built in 1859, but the cupola didn't arrive until 1860 from England and it didn't fit. Carpenters made the top deck larger by changing the tower from 8-sided to 7-sided, which then accommodated a triangular piece on the base of the cupola where the half door swung out. We are unaware of any other lighthouse where this occurs. Replacing the cupola is a major undertaking and we require extinguishing the light while the work is ongoing. The Coast Guard has the expertise to do this work and all the Coast Guard had some success in taking the windows out and sealing them and then putting a new gasket under the cupola. We feel that it would also be necessary to replace the gaskets between each of the 8 panels since those gaskets are much thinner than in similar cupolas and the water runs down into at least 2 of these gaskets. It would take many days to accomplish this. We require good weather conditions to have the top of the lighthouse exposed while the work is going on. Keeping tacks in place can be a challenge in the strong winds and require the Coast Guard helicopter. We would still have the same issue with the cupola not matching the historic profile. Removing the existing cupola and bringing in another cupola would take place over only a couple of days with the use of the Coast Guard helicopter, one to repair and one to do the exchange. To further enhance the historic character of the cupola, the Coast Guard, who still owns the light and fog systems, is planning to return the 1887 4th order Fresnel barrel lens that was in the cupola until the late 1980s, but with a modern twist, an LED lamp. Lighting the lens was one of the reasons the lens was removed and replaced with a modern acrylic Fresnel lens. Swallowtail Lighthouse has become a popular destination and have the tower open to visitors is an added draw. However, the number of people in the cupola has to be restricted because of the small size. Additionally, more room would give visitors a better opportunity to enjoy this gem of Fresnel lens. We would like the cupola changed before the 4th order Fresnel is returned, which in itself would be an undertaking because the lens weighs at least 340 pounds. We are hoping you might be able to help with this project, providing a letter of support to having the Coast Guard replace the cupola, which will help preserve and restore this important historic building and visitor. Sincerely, Laurie Morrison, Chairperson, Swallowtail Lightkeepers Society.
Mr. Mayor, I think this is a very worthwhile project, and they're asking us for a letter of support only at this time. So I would move that Council draft a letter of support to the Lighthouse Keeper Society stating that we support the Canadian Coast Guard replace the cupola, which will preserve and restore this important historic building.
There is a motion by Deputy Mayor Moses. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Sturgeon. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 10A is right whales, and there's been a lot of discussion on the right whales and what will happen if some of them happen to show up. I guess probably 1 or 2 in the Bay of Fundy. We're very dependent on our lobster fishery, and we can't do anything that's going to hinder the lobster industry. We should be promoting everything that will promote it. And Councilor Morse, would you agree with the Fishermen's Association? Would you like to add something to that?
Sure. I spoke with Mayor Green this morning about this. And one of the challenges that we have is that the situation with how the government is going to look to address the right whale situation is still very much in state of flux, particularly in the Maritimes region because there's been so much focus in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. So without boxing us into a corner, I drafted a letter which I'll read, which we suggested maybe would be worthwhile. I'd make a motion at the end of it to see if there is support from council on the topic. So the letter would go to Minister LeBlanc, and it would say simply, can you read tonight? The lobster industry on Grand Manan Island is the backbone of our economy. Its long-term success is critical to our community and our citizens. Over the years, the fishing industry here has worked with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and right whale biologists to develop a mitigation strategy for North Atlantic right whales. This collaborative effort is continually updated in conjunction with all parties. With recent events throughout other areas of the Maritimes, we hope that these efforts will continue to be recognized and any proposed changes will be done with thorough consultation and input from the local fishery. Yours truly, Dennis Green. I think the other thing that I'd like to say about this before I make the motion is one of the things that has been maybe not surprising, but a little bit surprising, I guess, over the winter, is we've become, as a fishing industry, so used to dealing with right whales because they sort of border our season a little bit in the fall and a little bit in spring, and we're very fortunate that they're generally not here when the fishery is open. But because fishermen have become so adept at making efforts to recognize when whales are in the area, not setting gear around them, dealing with things just on their own without having interference from outside agencies, and we have been upheld really as a model of how the fishing industry can work with white whales in the marine environment. So that part of it has been a good thing to hear, but I think it's beneficial if we don't lose some of that momentum that we have achieved over the past couple of decades. So with that being said, I would make a motion that council send this letter to Minister LeBlanc.
We have the motion by Councillor Morse. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Turner. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 11 is the committee reports. Recreation Director, Chris Rayner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a lot to report tonight. Make this fairly brief as possible. There's still a lot of agenda left to go through. I know some of the office staff turned back into pumpkins after a certain hours, so we'll make this quick. The final cleanup of the arena was completed. I know it seemed like it's May and it should have been completed a long time ago, but it was quite a process. That's all been done, and the switch over from hockey to indoor baseball is now underway. All the baseball stuff is up, currently being used by the kids. As you can imagine, with the amount of rain we've had, the diamonds are still extremely wet. We tried to get on today and got the lawn tractor stuck. So anyway, it'll be a great addition to get this four-wheel drive tractor.
Get stucker.
Get even more stucker, right? No, that's that actual word. This past weekend, the Canadian Armed Forces was scheduled to be here. This was kind of dropped at the last minute. I guess it wasn't dropped last minute. I was working with Major Steve Grant. They were here. He brought a party a couple different times over the last few weeks. It wasn't until just the last week or so that they approved the trip. Mayor Green and I met with one of the Canadian forces who brought over a document to be signed. Last minute, actually, the schedule come Friday afternoon, and we're getting back Friday. I got a call from Major Grant saying due to the recent event with the flooding that the resources were being pulled elsewhere. They hope to be able to reschedule their visit for sometime early fall. I guess to sum up the reason for their visit, as most of you remember last winter with the ice storm that they had up north, the Canadian forces were deployed to help in those situations, and they learned very quickly in these remote areas that there's not a lot of infrastructure. So their main focus of coming to Grand Manan was to do a tour and see exactly what we have for infrastructure in the event that they're ever called to come. I think this past year with the scare with the power and the cable might be a good example of a reason why they may have to be called. They weren't going to make it all work. They were going to also do some play. They were scheduled to set up Saturday morning during the market. They were bringing over roughly 18 armored vehicles and upwards of 40 members. They were going to set up in the parking lot kind of a touch a truck to be able to allow the kids to go run through all the different equipment. They were also going to bring firearms for the kids to them all over, with blanks, of course. They were going to set up a huge tent out in the field with several different options to see how some of the Marines, how they live. They just got back from Labrador City, where they have these small tents where up to 4 people get to live for up to a week. So for the kids to be able to see what kind of conditions that they live in, to keep guys alive, is quite interesting. They're also going to bring over some rations for everybody to try. So it sounds like it's going to be a great weekend. So hopefully they'll reschedule in the fall, get them over here, kind of something different for a change. Pool preparation well underway. No surprise in the condition. This year, the floor of the baby pool was completely unsalvageable. I obtained a jackhammer from our local concrete company, and for 2.5 days tried to get the baby pool floor up with very, very little success. So I finally ended up calling for reinforcements. I took part of the fence down. We got a small excavator in to completely take the floor out. So that'll have to be re-poured before opening the course. The rest of the pool, sound like a broken record, but as you can imagine, lots of repairs there. Noticing many cracks in the wall this year, which may explain some of the huge water losses we were experiencing in the last couple of weeks of the season last year. Like as usual, we never know until we get the pool fixed, painted, filled, chlorinated, and up and running until we find out whether or not we're going to have those leaks. Last week, we did take a week off from the pool. We went to Castilla to install all the new playground equipment. I'm sure most of you have driven by to see the new equipment. It's absolutely fantastic. We brought in JIL Engineering and Construction from Fairton to come down to be the lead on this. We kept the equipment over in the pool, over in the garage all winter. We stored it. When I got digging around this spring looking at all the pieces, I come to the conclusion very quickly that I did not have the expertise to install that properly. JIL Engineering are CSA approved playground installers. So when this playground is done, it'll probably be Grand Man's first ever CSA approved playground. The JIL Engineering is kind of a funny story. The gentleman who owns that, his name is Jeff Lenahan. He is Dr. Lenahan's son. He got in touch with me, totally unrelated to the project. Said he had a soft spot for Grand Manan. Spent many summers here, traveled back with his family, with his father. And if there's ever a project that we needed done, so certainly let give him a call. So it just so happened, I think it was the next week, we had him down here digging in the dirt. So that was, he really enjoyed to be able to be here to kind of give back to a place that he really has a soft spot for. It certainly was a good week. Not only did we get the playground in, but from my point of view, I certainly learned a lot. Being there every day, working with them on the proper way that this CSA guidelines goes. I was quite amazed to learn that in Canada, out of 98% of all playground accidents, you would assume would be from falling. They're not. They're from choking. Kids are getting their strings on their sweatshirts or their coats caught in these places, so the way these go together eliminate any kind of gap. So to go around that and look at the playgrounds that we have, I actually took Jeff with me, and he wanted to know if he wanted to be for him to generate a report on the condition of the current playgrounds. They said, no, thank you. Rocket scientist to figure that one out at $85 an hour. But so it was great to see that at the end of the day, moving forward, it's going to make a lot more sense when we put in new playground equipment than what what to look for, as well as how to put these in. I also learned that most of you remember the village got in the middle of this Cascade Playground, kind of in the middle. It was a presentation that one of the local residents applied to the 100 Women Who Care to try to resurrect this little playground. So 100 Women Who Care came to us and said, you know, listen, we can't give them the money, and it's owned by the municipality, so this is when we got involved. But at that point, a lot of the equipment was already looked into and purchased. I think moving forward next time, there's some different things that we could do to make things a little easier. Having said that, don't get me wrong, the playground is absolutely phenomenal. Kids are going to enjoy it. Kids were there every day looking through the fence, wondering how long before it's going to be done and when they can play. But run into a little bit of a hiccup. Part of this process, Bill at the transfer station, somehow he used to be involved with the company in Woodstock who make this new rubber mulch, which is the new substrate that they're using instead of the pea gravel. He went on Friday to pick up the rubber, and they sold it on him. So now he's come back to find out that it could be 3 to 4 weeks before they get this new material. So now we're in the process of trying to come up with a solution. So as soon as we get that, hopefully it's a very small wait before we allow the kids to go in and play. Right now the gate is locked because it's not safe. There's still exposed holes and things like that. So, but also, I think if the CAO McPherson's in the process of doing EIA searching, I noticed when we were up there this week that there is several feet of area that we mowed last year that's no longer there, which is kind of scary. So, hopefully with this new playground, the new one won't last as long as the old one did for the banks and the playground. Any questions?
All the pieces installed now?
They're all there.
How many pieces?
We have a new climbing structure. With the climbing structure is different elevations that kids will climb. It's got a mock rock wall where they can climb up the back. It's got another climber where if you drive by you can see there's a big letter A, B, and C that they can climb up, as well as a double slide. There's a teeter-totter, a swing set which has 2 swings for older kids and 1 baby swing off the side. It has a small little excavator digger that the kids can sit on and dig, and a spring toilet where you sit on with it. It has a spring on the base that you can just rock back and forth.
Indoor baseball, is it being played inside the arena, is that what you mean, or?
It's not indoor baseball per se. A couple of years ago, I applied for a grant and received some money. So currently out back right now, we have the batting cage. We have 3 hitting screens, an indoor pitcher's mound, as well as some equipment and tees and different things. So the kids are actually able to transition out there, practicing hit-run throws, waiting for the diamonds to dry out.
Okay, so it's more of a practice area than a game.
More, they don't actually play games. It's just a chance for like a spring training facility.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Now we have Andrew Jones as a guest tonight. He's going to give us a little report on the fire department.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Just wanted to extend greetings from the fire department. Try to make it quarterly. I guess last month we had a little conflict in the schedule. Just have a few little statistics to approach it, and maybe some of you folks have some questions for me. In the first 4 months, up to the end of April, we had 5 motor vehicle accidents, 6 chimney fires, 3 structure fires, 2 propane leaks, and 1 boat sinking that we responded to. We almost had to come say we need to be full-time, but anyhow, it's smoothed out. We had 86 hours of training opportunities for firefighters in those 4 months. We currently have 29 firefighters, 1 dispatcher and 1 junior firefighter. And in that time, we had 21 first responders trained and certified. So there was an active first 4 months. There's since been another structure fire. And I don't want to say that any fire was started from electrical causes, but in that point, I think we all have to kind of be aware that electrical related fires can happen very easily with space heaters and overloaded circuits, and maybe something that people just aren't really aware of such a serious nature. So again, not pointing anything towards electrical and the fires that we responded to, but just that overall throughout North America there's a lot of incidents that involve electrical fires, and space heaters draw a lot of amperage on circuits that aren't really designed for space heaters. So might just be something that as a council and as firefighters we can put that word out to people to be cautious. They think that just because it's a three-pronged plug, they can put it anywhere that there's 3 prongs, that maybe that's not a safe thing to do. So those were the items that I just wanted to mention over our last 4 months, and just wanted to touch base. Maybe you folks had some questions of the fire department.
Your report, you mentioned a number of chimney fires. Do you keep ongoing yearly statistics? That sounded low to me. Were there less chimney fires this year than in other years?
You know, that's a good question. I'd say it was kind of on par with other years. The motor vehicle accidents were way up, and the structure fires were up. Typically in a year there would be maybe 1 or 2 major structure fires, and we responded to 4 since January 1st. So in that way it is up. 6 chimney fires would be somewhat typical, and I don't have the actual comparisons, but quite typical. Yeah. Good question.
The only comment I have is, Andrew, you people do a great job, you volunteers, and we really appreciate what you're doing, and we feel that our fire department is second to none, so we do appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll extend the message to the members.
11.3 is UMNB zone report. Councilor Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the UMB Zone 4 report, Zone 4 meeting, and on April the 24th, and it was hosted by the town of St. Andrews. They did a great job in hosting that, and each of our communities there, we give we give a report of what's going on. All municipalities were present except for St. George, and times continue to be good in all through Charlotte County. It seems like we're not the only communities that are on a waiting list for carpenters, so things are going very good in that regards, and heavier construction as well. So that's a good thing. St. Andrews has a tremendous deer problem, and a councillor from St. after much discussion, and also with a little bit of discussion, not at the meeting but at other times with the provincial deer biologist, we're looking to ask the province for permission to ask for municipalities to be able to transfer deer, and from one municipality to the other, because some communities have too many and some would just love to have them. So anyway, we're going to ask hopefully get a resolution to send forward in August to ask for, see what we can do in that regards. That doesn't mean necessarily the Grand Manan is going to make that request, but it just that municipalities can do that if they wish, or if we'll ask for that in that regards. Mr. Mayor, one thing that a resolution that was brought forth last year from Zone 4, as well as another zone, was that streetlights, according to NB Power and the Energy Utilities Board, it's supposed to be provided for just a little over cost, like 0.05% over cost. I mean, it's practically nothing. but instead our streetlight costs are going up and up and up. In fact, they've doubled in a short amount of time. So our new executive, when MB Power made a presentation, asked for request for power increase, of course, for rate increase, our new executive director, Margot Craig, spoke on behalf of union municipalities in Brunswick, said, hey, wait a minute here. We're not getting our deal that we're supposed to get. And she spoke so well and so forcefully, if I may say so. The lawyer for the Energy Utilities Board says, yeah, what is up with that anyway? I mean, obviously, you're not doing what you're supposed to get. And this could, we could potentially, if the Energy Utilities Board rules in our favor, we could say our lead street lights could cost us half of what they are now. So this would be a significant saving. Another thing, Mr. Mayor, is we talked more about health care, and our new executive director, Margot Craig, is working hard on having a great emphasis put on health care, in particular health care recruitment, and how the complicated doctor billing hours, how that works, what we can do to change that. And we're hoping for Horizon Health to be there at the annual general meeting in September or 1st of October. So the last weekend of September, that's what it is. So anyway, Mr. Mayor, also as well, we are looking to have our next Zone 4 meeting here on Graham and Ann, and looking forward to using our facilities, and also Mr. Mayor, we're usually gracious hosts when they do come to our community. We're looking forward to coming as well. So
We'll see if we can get some nominees for it.
Yeah, hard stretch for, hopefully anyway. I think that's the 28th of July. And that's pretty much what I have to report. Mr. Mayor, any questions?
Thank you, Councillor Sturgeon. Deputy Mayor Moses.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I sit on the oversight committee for the Rural Links bus that we had introduced. The oversight committee consists of the Department of Infrastructure, Department of DTI, RDC, our local board, and a member from the local committee. A little review of where we started and how we come to where we are and what we're hoping to do in the future. We started with 2 buses, 2 routes, a main line and what they call a community connector. In January, we did a review, and the community connector was not getting any ridership at all, so we discontinued the community connector. And when we did, the ridership on the main line went up slightly. And what we would like to do, the board of Rural Links would like to do in the future, is to bring a community-style bus that will serve the local community and connect with the main line from Maritime Bus. I passed around a few graphs, and I'm not going to go in through every one of them in detail. They're quite self-explanatory. The first one I'd like to touch on is the internal versus external journeys. Excuse me. In bus speak, a journey is not a trip, it's a passenger ticket. So if a passenger buys a ticket, it's called a journey. And the internal and external. The internal is the route within the community, within Charlotte County. The external are tickets that link to other parts of the bus network. For instance, an internal would be from Blacks Harbor to St. Stephen, or Blacks Harbor to St. John. External would be a person that picks up a ticket that goes further They would go like from Granite or Black Harbor to St. John and then go further to Fredericton, Moncton, Halifax, wherever. And they're about 60-40, 60% internal and about 40% of all the tickets go beyond the local network. The next one is the average daily journeys. That would be the average daily tickets. You can see we started at about 4.1 tickets per day, and we've gained up to close to 6. It's not near what would require that main line to stay solvent or on its own. At this point, with a general climb like that at the end of 2 years, they would still need a subsidy. The next one I would like to put forward to the community total percentage, the pie graph. This is quite interesting to myself, and it was quite a surprise to most everybody else on the board. Blacks Harbor, or the coastal terminal in Blacks Harbor, is a whopping 13% of all the traffic that goes on the bus. No one on the board or no one at Maritime Bus thought that we would pick up hardly any. And from requests through business, I knew we would have some. It's a little more than what I had anticipated. And I hope to, through the summer, to see this increase. I know that we, at my place of work, we get calls all the time. How do I get from the airport to Granite? So now I can tell them they can take a bus. And the last one I'll bring your attention to is the fare types. And we all thought there would be a lot more student fares. And this page has a pie graph for it. Student fares are 33%. Total adult fares are 47%. Child fares are very low, 3%. And student fare, I'm sorry, it's very small printing. Seniors were the 33%. Students are only 16%. We've seen that student number go up in the last few weeks. Perhaps it's because school's closing and they're traveling home. There was a real big spike in student fares around Christmas and Easter. And that is my report.
More of a comment, I guess, than a question. It's interesting how much, since the new year, really, or the end of January, the fares have stabilized. It's very consistent, really, week by week, the number of people who are traveling, which I think is good to see over the long term.
That stabilization is a factor of taking that community connector, which wasn't having any ridership.
That's why it will be, I would assume, similar to the ferry, January to March tends to be low travel times. So it'll be interesting to see if it does go up, as you said, in the summer.
Yeah, the people in the industry are telling us that, things should pick up quite quickly now, and we'll see at the end of the summer what the next.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Number 12 is approval to pay the following invoices: 12-1 General Operating Fund, Approach Navigation System, Airport Maintenance, $1,752.77. Home Hardware Business Center and Rec, $2,732.41.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pay those aforementioned invoices from the general operating fund.
You heard the motion by Councillor Cheney. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Moses. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 12-2 is the General Capital Fund, Green Diamond Equipment Limited, a John Deere utility tractor, $30,705.
Mayor, I move that we pay the Green Diamond Equipment invoice for the John Deere utility tractor from the General Capital Fund.
I thought you were through, but I guess you
No. in the amount of $30,000, $705.
Here's a motion by Councillor Cheney. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Mr.
Seconded by Councillor Crescent. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 13, we'll go into closed session. Garbage barrels, Dark Harbor lease, visitor information.
I move to adjourn to closed session.
There's a motion by Councillor Morris. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Moses. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Call this meeting back to order after being in closed session, and we were in closed session to discuss the garbage barrels, the Dark Harbor lease, and the visitor information center. So the first one is the garbage barrels.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we accept the applicant and with written conditions.
You heard the motion by Councillor Sturgeon. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cheney. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Dark Harbor lease.
I would move that the Dark Harbor lease be amended as discussed.
We have a motion by Councillor Morris. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Moses. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And personnel is the staff interviewed people for the visitor information session, and they have been selected and notified. So our next regular council meeting is the Grand Manan Community Center, Monday, June the 4th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. Thank you and good night. Motion by Councillor Morris to adjourn. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Sturgeon. Good night. I'll go by voice and hand